affordability is getting harder and harder. The average time it takes to save a deposit is over 10 years. Rental accommodation is becoming more important.
Our primary job is to deliver strong long-term investment performance. If we can do that and create economic growth and infrastructure that we all live in, how marvellous is that? Hello and welcome to Super Insider, a podcast on superannuation, retirement and investing. My name's Anne and we're so happy you are here today because another ratchet up Super Insider episode at one of our amazing assets here in Brunswick, LIV. And we have the CEO, his name is Campbell Hanan from Mirvac, and Michael Weaver, who is our GM of mid-risk assets here on the program. And we're going to have a bit of a yarn about how this makes our members money. But before we do that, just remember this is information only, it's general advice, and you'll need to make sure whether it's applicable for you. So gents, we're sitting in a living room of an apartment that our members at Australian Retirement Trust own. How in God's name does something like this end up in our portfolio? Michael, I'm going to start with you.
So we work with Mirvac in relation to this investment, but how does it come into the portfolio? Yeah. We think about the portfolio, we look after about 370 billion on behalf of members, about 2.4 million members all around Australia, including many down here in Melbourne. And for us, we invest across all different asset classes. So that includes equities, so share markets, bonds, cash, real estate, such as this, infrastructure, private equity, and private credit. So lots of different assets that we invest into. In the real estate portfolio, which is where this sits, we have different assets, office buildings, shopping centres, industrial parks, logistics assets, many others, including residential investments.
Michael, there is one question members are asking us all the time. It never stops being asked. How much of our money is invested in Australia?
Yeah, and it's a question we like answering because, oftentimes, members ask me the same question as well when we're talking to them. So we have over $180 billion invested in Australia. Clearly, a lot of that is in the stock market, in equities that many people would know. But we have over $18 billion invested in Australian infrastructure. We have over $9 billion invested in Australian real estate, including about $2 billion with Mirvac. And this is a large investment as part of that portfolio. So we invest in Australia and we'll continue to invest in Australia. Australia is a great place to invest and we like doing it.
Campbell, what was the inception of Mirvac creating this whole new asset class of build to rent?
So build to rent is an asset class designed exclusively for renters. It's pretty common in other parts of the world, so it's been a big part of the North American landscape for a while. It's quite new to Australia, but it plays into a couple of what we'd call key investing thematics. Australia has a very fast growing population and that population's got to be housed. We have an incredibly unaffordable real estate market, and so increasingly a large number of Australians are renting rather than owning, often not by choice. The average age of the first home buyer in a Sydney and a Melbourne is now in their late 30s. The average time it takes to save a deposit for a house is over 10 years. The vacancy rate for rental product in a Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane is all below 1.5%. So we have this sort of chronic undersupply of rental product. The more research we did into the sector with an Australian context in mind, the key things that renters were telling us is they just wanted security of tenure. There was nothing worse for them than to lose control of their accommodation because an owner sold the place or they wanted children to move in or whatever, but they lose control of their accommodation, particularly if they've got kids in a local school nearby. Secondly, they really disliked the concept that they felt like second-class citizens relative to owners. An owner next door in an apartment building is allowed to have a pet, but a renter is not allowed.
Put a nail in the wall.
Put a nail in the wall, hang a piece of art.
Yeah.
No sense of community. And so really this concept was all about how could we create an asset class, which is a very big pool of people in Australia who rent, that could give them security of tenure. It would allow them to have great amenity. The amenities that we have in this asset class, in this building we're in right now in Brunswick, we've got co-working areas, we've got gyms, we've got movie rooms, we've got podcast rooms. We have all of this amenity, and it's all designed, every renter is equal, and it's all about creating community and security of tenure in the long run.
Michael, how did we find Mirvac and actually consider this as an option in terms of our property portfolio?
Mirvac is one of the largest real estate investment companies in the country. From our perspective, they're people we've had a long-term relationship. We've invested in office buildings with Mirvac. We've invested into industrial estates, logistics parks, and so long-term relationship where we've worked together looking at assets that we can own for the medium to long term. And that's how we think about it here. Some of them are already developed, so we like the fact that we're buying into assets that are already here, but there's actually a big pipeline of opportunities for us to invest together going forward. And from an alignment perspective, the fact that Mirvac balance sheet is invested alongside us in this asset is actually quite good as well. So there's actually 5 in this portfolio. We like the fact that there's already 5.
5 of these types of apartment buildings.
Newstead up in Queensland.
Sydney Olympic Park in Sydney, and we've got 3 assets here in Melbourne.
So for us, long-term linkages to inflation. Obviously, everyone needs somewhere to live, and some people are happy to be renters, and some are happy to have that security of tenure and continue to stay here long-term. And so we like that creates benefits for our members long-term from a return profile. So there's both income and there's capital growth, because essentially owning the whole building, we're able to control how the future of that goes. They cost a lot of money to develop a large apartment block. There's around 500 units in this block here. The amount of money that we need to invest at scale is quite helpful from a long-term perspective.
And it's a really, so listeners and viewers, it's a really solid brick building. This is a really high quality, and I've just done the tour and it's spectacular. Tell us about Mirvac. Like, when we set up, what's the history?
So we're over 50 years old
Yeah.
As an organisation. We're a developer at heart. We're an award-winning developer, so we are recognised probably most for our residential capability. And for many of your Queensland constituents, they'd know that Newstead precinct that we've been developing in for a long time, Cutters Landing. So a lot of it has been resi-based for a long period of time. But we're a large developer in office, we're a large developer in industrial. We're sort of the first company to get involved in this build-to-rent sector in Australia. We put all of our balance sheet to work investing in that space because we had a deep conviction that it was an investment that was worthwhile. We're about 1,600 people from Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney and Perth. We play across those multiple asset classes, and we're a fully integrated player. The uniqueness of Mirvac, in-house design, so we've got a team of architects, we're a developer, we're a builder, and we're an asset manager, investment manager and property manager.
And I think the fact that you are the first entrant into this asset class is quite interesting, because this is quite an established investment vehicle that we have utilised over in the United States particularly. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yeah, that's right. So we've been a long-term investor into residential real estate, particularly in the US. As Campbell mentioned, it's been an institutional asset class there for many, many years. So we've seen products very similar to this in the US, and they have good long-term return drivers for our members. Good from an investment perspective for us to have that knowledge. It's a huge asset class over there. And so we think it has good long-term potential here. We looked at all of the different investments, obviously being of our scale and size. People are interested in talking to us about what they're doing, and there's a few good operators out there, and we think the asset class will become more institutionalised over time. But partnering with the largest platform and having our ability to grow that alongside Mirvac, we think's really good.
One of the things that we believe in Art is that obviously our primary job is to deliver strong long-term investment performance. However, if we can do that and do good for the country, for the community, and create economic growth and infrastructure that we all live in. So this is why I think, again, I'm going to bring the government into this, and maybe we could jump to the Newstead story.
So we entered at Newstead. We entered into an arrangement with the Queensland government where we were selected as a preferred party to deliver a unique build-to-rent style of product, where 25% of the apartments would be offered to essential workers, government workers, on a reduced rent.
So nurses, teachers, AMBOs...
police, all of those things. They had to live within a 10-kilometre radius of the site and be employed within that precinct. And then the government would top up their rent to make us whole. The great benefit for government was that provided 100 affordable apartments, and the rent top-up actually allowed 100 apartments. You'd probably be able to build about 10 with the same amount of money. So the government dollars go a lot further, great alignment of interest. We're doing good for community, but it's also a good investment strategy for us as well.
Well, I think all of these locations are right near hospitals, schools, so people have really everything that they need nearby. Like there are, I think you're saying young doctors come in and rent here.
The things that we're always attracted to is close proximity to CBDs. Young professional people want to get in and out of work. The average age of the cohort of people who live in the 2,200 apartments which you've co-invested with us, the average age is about 30. So these are aspirational professional people who eventually want to own a home but probably can't quite now. So this provides close proximity to a city. It gives them all the amenity they need. They can work from home a couple of days a week if they need to, because we've got co-working facilities as part of the amenity here. You've got your gyms, you've got your dog mining facilities, you've got all of these weird and wonderful things that allow people to live their best life.
Okay. And Michael, you have been with Arch for 19 years?
That's right.
Why is it only kind of now emerging in Australia as an investment opportunity? Why wasn't it around 10 years ago?
It just takes people to create something. And yes, it was created in the US, 30, 40 years ago, and then became larger, and then it became more institutionalised with large pension funds similar to us owning these sorts of assets. And when it started developing here, we expected that we'd get to this sort of point where there would be a natural size where it would make sense for us to take the time and effort to invest, because everything we do is, we're looking at different opportunities, whether it's here in Australia or offshore. And so, Mirvac leading the way and having good experience both in that residential area. Clearly the history there is beneficial, but then also from an investment management perspective and a long-term relationship we've had in the office buildings and industrial parks as well. So got the confidence from those relationships that we had that we're able to build the partnership going forward.
The other change I think and this has been creeping upon us for the last 25 years, affordability is getting harder and harder
so
and
that's
harder.
Not a good reason.
It's not a good reason. I couldn't agree more. But ultimately, all Australians have got to be housed. And if the affordability of ownership, which is an aspiration of everyone, and I grant that, but the aspiration and the reality are just drifting apart a little bit. And so rental accommodation is becoming more important in an Australian context because of affordability. And then if you put yourself in the mind of a renter, the things that you want, you want to be treated equally, and you want to be part of a community. You want to be allowed to have a pet. You want to be able to put a piece of art on the wall. These are things you want. So I think it's just taken a little while for Australia to catch up on something which has been prevalent in other parts of the world for a long period of time.
I am married to a German, and these long-term sort of rental, it's very established.
It's very normal.
Very normal, and in fact, they have 100-year leases for families. Is that something you think where we would ever get to?
Personally, I'm not convinced that would happen here because of the reality is we do have a lot of land in Australia, and eventually you would think that there can be supply that actually catches up with the demand that we have. But it is challenging for that supply constraints that we do have to be able to match where the demand is going. And so I think there is very much in the psyche of Australians the desire to own, but there can be quite a few people that are actually quite happy to rent and have access to all those facilities, and they might have their own investment property that they're renting out to someone, right? But they might want to be in the sort of community that has the benefits that we're talking about. And so we think this sort of product will continue to grow over time.
I think about Queensland, such a decentralised state. For the Queensland government, getting essential workers, getting doctors to the regions, do you see at some point that this type of thing will exist outside of, the Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane dynamic?
Oh, absolutely. Rental issues are not just limited to the CBDs.
No,
they're everywhere. Yeah. And so over time, yes, absolutely. But I think the most obvious place to start is the cities, because they've got the deepest pool of renters. You've got the most chronic issues in the undersupply of rental property. I think, as I mentioned earlier, when you've got rental vacancy below 1.5% in your major cities, that's a problem if you're a renter. It's a real problem. So security of tenure, it just makes sense for us to do it in the CBDs first. These are big buildings. They're expensive buildings. 500 apartments is a very, very significant structure. So you need to have deep building capability in all of those markets, which you don't necessarily have that depth in some of the smaller markets, which we need to be mindful of.
To bring this all together, Michael, do you want to remind our listeners and viewers, like the high level numbers in terms of just, our high growth? This is an asset within our high growth. It's in our life cycle balance. Do you want to put it into context so people go, yes, I'm invested in this?
Yeah, so basically any of our diversified options, so including high growth, balanced, conservative balance and conservative, all of those asset classes.
All own it. If you're in any of those, you own
correct.
This.
And the unlisted assets option as well. So any asset class that has the real estate option that are unlisted assets, this is where that sits. And it's a large investment for us. On day one, it was over $500 million, and we've got over $2 billion invested with Mirvac, so they're a big player. But we look after huge amounts of money on behalf of those 2.4 million members. And so that is what we own, and that's how we think about generating returns. And so we look at something like this and we say, how will this generate returns and provide good diversification against all of the other investments, both in real estate portfolio, but then against the whole portfolio as well. And we're confident that over the medium to long term, this will generate good returns for our members.
Are we going to be doing a lot more of this, Michael, investing in more of these amazing apartments with Mirvac?
We think yes is the answer. So right now there's 5 in the portfolio that are over 2,000 apartments between those 5 investments, and there's a strong pipeline. So one of the things that we want as a large investor that continues to attract members' retirement savings is assets that are good for today but also good for tomorrow. And these 5 assets are, but then we're probably able to invest in a lot more over time. And Mirvac is a developer that can control the process through development, construction, and then investment management long term. We think is a really good partner for this sort of investment. So we look forward to doing it here in Australia.
So why we are recording here is so that people can actually start seeing superannuation as something that's not abstract. It's like, people understand the concept of having an investment property. Well, you kind of have that now with your superannuation. You own this bricks and mortar, and it's making money for you. If you want to know how much this amazing apartment building that you own as a member of Australian Retirement Trust, you need to download the app and log in and check your investment option and what returns you're getting, and then feel proud and excited about your assets and your retirement future. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to you joining us again soon.